Hello, welcome back to the podcast Journey to Well. My name is Hannah. Today is so fun because we're talking about money, what everyone wants to talk about or wants to ignore. But today I'm joined with Morgan Blackman. She's a holistic wealth coach. One of the reasons that I decided to have her on the podcast is because we're not talking about just like financial planning and the really boring but important stuff to learn, but we're talking more about the spiritual balance between building wealth and truly building wealth, not just having a lot of money in our bank account. So, we're going to get all into this conversation, but I want to hand over the microphone to you, Morgan, to introduce yourself. She is
Oh,
a 2-5 sacral manifesting generator, so also very exciting that Morgan actually knows about human design. And we're going to have a conversation of how we can actually use our human design knowledge in building our personal wealth and building our brand if you're a business owner. So there's so much fun stuff to talk about today. But first, we gotta learn who Morgan is. So, Morgan, thank you so much for coming on. And please introduce yourself. Who is Morgan? A little bit about your story and whatever else you'd like to share.
yeah. Thanks so much for having me on, Hannah. I'm so excited because I usually never really get to talk about human design and how that kind of relates to money and wealth building and just feeling resourceful. So, yeah, excited to have the conversation today. Oh my gosh, I never know where to really start, but yes, I'm a holistic wealth coach. And I'm really just about helping soul conscious women build wealth that's in alignment with not just what number they want in their bank account, but ensuring that it's aligned with their values, their overall vision, and their energetic blueprint. So when we talk about like human design, astrology, I'm not an expert, probably not as great at reading someone's chart as you, but even just a little bit of the basics, right? Like even just small bits of information can really go a long way. Yeah. And the reason why I think I got to a place where I was able to bridge wellness and finances was because I had like a huge spiritual awakening in university. And I was kind of in this like toxic situationship that sort of kind of helped me to come home to myself, just recognizing the ways that I abandoned myself within that relationship. And so I think I did a lot of work around what does self-love look like? What does trust with spirit look like? What do I want my life to look like? How can I like shift my mindset, my environment, the relationships that I have with people to eventually create that and curate that for myself? Um, and around that time in university, as I was like making these shifts around my health, my relationship with spirit, I had a roommate. Well, we're still really good friends. Roommate slash good friends. She was investing, and through that, I got to learn about investing in the stock market and this concept and idea of like having your money work for you. And I just ran with it. I was like, I just want to be like good at like mastering everything. I think like that's just who I am as a person. I like want to be 1% better each and every day. And so it was like if I, like how can I do that when it comes to my money? And just feeling more resourceful and like what does it really take to build wealth and get rich, Back then it was like that was kind of part of the focus. Like I want to make as much money as possible and travel and do all these fun things with my money. And yeah, started investing within that first year of learning about it. This is all still in university, and I was able to double $5,000 is what I started with, double that into $10,000 within my first year. And then 3 years into it, after consecutively, investing, paying off my debts, just working on other financial goals, was able to build my investment fund to $40,000, paid off $30,000 in debt. And that was when I got to a point in my life where I was like, wow, as a woman, as a Black woman, being able to, really reach these milestones, I want to be able to empower other women to also do the same and to recognize that like you can be good with money too. You don't have to be born into wealth or just, yeah, like I think some people think money is something that like is it's like a I don't know, like you're just naturally gifted with. Some people are just naturally good with money. And that's far from the truth. Like it's a skill, it's something that you have to practice and be consistent with, and yeah, and then you can eventually get to a place where you can build wealth that feels good to you. So that's
That's
how I
such a
became the
good
coach I am
point.
today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's such a good point because I think I have that mindset sometimes of like I think some people are just really good with money and some people aren't, but
Right.
it does start. I know that part of my financial literacy started growing up. My mom really taught my sister and I how to save. I want to share this idea because I know I have moms on the podcast that listen. So,
Okay.
my mom, when we were kids, when we got our first job, I worked at a supermarket as my first job as a little cashier. And she told us that whatever we chose to take from our paycheck and put into our savings account, she would match. So if I put $50 in my savings account, she would put another $50 and that would be $100.
Right.
So I really thank her so much for that encouragement of saving, of learning how to save. And that actually allowed me to buy my first car out of high school
Right.
in cash because I had saved so much money. I mean, at that time, my car was only $13,000. I don't think you can get a new car at 13,000 anymore. But
Right.
um, but that's okay. That's not the point to buy the car. It was really teaching this mindset of being aware of how you can allocate your paycheck. And so I do think part of it comes
Mm.
from your upbringing, but I really love that you brought up that fact of it's not just some people are good at it, some people aren't. It can really be this thing that we develop and that we become more competent in over time. I know I have so many questions, but on that same line, I know that's one of the blocks. We have so many money blocks, but one of the blocks is it can feel very overwhelming to a lot of people
Mm.
of like, where do I start? How do I even begin learning? I guess where do I start? Because then you have to ask the question of how do I start learning X, Y, and Z. But
Right.
where did you start? You mentioned investing, but where do you
Oh,
coach your
yeah.
clients to start?
Yeah. I definitely started backwards. But
Oh,
actually, like I mean, yeah, with the investing, I normally would tell people like you probably don't just jump into investing, right? Like there's layers to it, pay off your debt first, et cetera, et cetera. But I actually wanted to touch on um your story and like ask what motivated you because I mean, yeah, like for your mom to be like, I'll match it. Like what was like, did you know that there was a clear end goal to that? Like, did you talk it through with her that, yeah, like this is going to be a way to like buy a car eventually? Or was it just the idea of saving? You just knew that saving was the thing that you're supposed to do. It's a good thing to do. And so you did it.
that's a great question. I didn't have the idea of buying a car, so I think it was more of
Right.
the latter of, and she shared this with us, like there's a balance to be had. And her
Mm,
background was that her dad spent his whole life saving and never enjoying any of his money. And so when he passed, he really spent his life saving to pass on something to his children, which my mom
right.
appreciated, obviously.
Yeah.
But I remember growing up and her sharing, like, I never saw, we called him Pepe. I never saw my Pepe enjoy, or I never saw my Pepe enjoy, or her dad
Yeah.
enjoy his money. Like, he never
That's
went on a
awesome.
trip. He always talked about wanting to travel, and he never went on a trip. And so
Right.
when he passed when I was young, I think that also influenced her in really wanting to teach us balance. So it's important to save,
Right.
and that's why she enticed us with adding the or doubling what we're
Mhm.
saving. But she would always say, make sure that you're enjoying your money too. So find that
Right.
balance between these are the bills I have to pay, which in high school is nothing, basically. My phone bill
Exactly.
maybe. So have
Exactly.
the money for the bills that you need to pay, have money to save, and then have money to enjoy. And so it's really that
Yeah.
holistic approach. But
Oh,
I
yeah.
know she said a lot of like, it's really important
Yeah.
to save just to have savings, like a cushion, or if you want to buy
For
things in
sure.
the future, or, you don't have a lot of bills right now. So why would you be spending your whatever $130,
Yeah.
$137 paycheck um,
Right.
all at once? You don't have that much to pay for. So
Yeah.
you might as well save.
Mm,
And I think
I
that it
love that.
just like a 401k match that some businesses offer, like the
Yeah.
percentage, anytime that you're given free money, I mean, even from a young age, everyone can recognize, like, oh shit, okay, let's take
I'm
advantage
doing an
of this.
extra, right?
So
Why would I
that's,
turn that down?
yeah, that's
Yeah,
how I
yeah,
felt.
definitely. Yeah, she created that like positive sort of reinforcement or like
Mm,
reward. Yeah, in doing that. I love that. Yeah, you had like a really solid kind of foundation and start. You had someone in your circle that um yeah, just really understood the value in saving and saving towards your future self and not just focusing on the now and enjoying the money now, but like a bit of both. And I think why that's important is I kind of had the opposite situation in a sense where, like, my dad, he's an accountant, he's a accountant and also a real estate agent. And I knew that I was supposed to save, but like it wasn't taught in a very supportive or nurturing way. It was more so from a place of like shame.
mm,
So it was like, you're supposed to save, but I didn't understand why I was supposed to save. And I didn't see my parents really do it.
mm,
So, like with your mother, like she was a good example because she was doing it for herself. And
yeah.
then also teaching you to do that. But for me, it was sort of like, you're supposed to save, but I don't see you guys saving. There's a lot of conflict around money. They're
Mm,
fighting about money all the time. Um, and whenever I would get my, because I worked at a Tim Hortons, so I don't know what the
mhm.
equivalent of that is in
I know
the
what it
States,
is.
maybe like a
Yeah.
Dunkin' Donuts or
Yeah.
something, right? Yeah. And yeah, making good money, like you said, like I don't have a mortgage or, don't have to pay for groceries. So what really do I have to waste it on? And I would make like $20,000 for the year because my dad's an accountant. So, he would pull up all the slips and he'd be like, yeah, like where did all your money go? Like, did you save any of it? And I'm like, no. Gosh, I didn't even realize I was making that much money. And then when I would look at like where it was going, it was like food, clothes, makeup, hair, like anything that like a young girl would spend her money on.
Yeah.
And so instead of being like, okay, well, yeah, I think you should save. Here's why you should save. This is how you save. I never got that, right? So it was more so like, well, I don't really know what I need to save for. I'm not thinking about the future and like university and all of that. So I just spent it. But I would say if anyone who's starting on their journey, the first thing that you want to sort of look at is get really clear on your why. Like your
Mm,
why is going to eventually determine your goals and be the motivating factor towards those goals. Because like we're talking about saving here, and I recognize that with a lot of people don't really recognize the importance of saving or why they need to save. Like they know it's something that they should be doing, but like if there's no motivating factor or reason to save, then you're not going to save, right? So once you're able to like tie it and align it with like, oh yeah, I should save because if I were to lose my job today and be, out of a job for 6 months, I would need something to cushion me to cover my basic expenses for those 6 months. Or if I have a business for like the year, who knows, like, income kind of comes and goes. And like I'm not sure, I don't have a set amount of money that's coming in every 2 weeks or month. So
right.
like I should have a larger cushion. So like when you're able to kind of like attach it to something or like a larger goal or reason, I think it becomes easier to actually take your finances more serious and then want to actually save and then eventually invest. Investing is another motivating factor too. And I think that's why I started to get my financial shit together in university. That became my why. Because once I recognized that, oh shoot, like I can put my money into something and then it just like works for itself. And I don't have to exchange time for that money. So I
Mm,
could be like relaxing on a beach somewhere and like magically just make an extra $500 for the day. Like,
yeah.
who wouldn't want that, right? And that was when it clicked for me. And I was like, I'm going to do everything in my power to like master investing and have my money work for me. And then because I wanted to invest, I had to work backwards. So it's like, yeah, I don't want debt because then I don't want all this high interest stuff working against, my investments. And then also, obviously, I need to save because I want a cushion as well too, and I want to put everything into my investments. So, and that's how that became my motivating factor and reason. But it wasn't because of really my parents. It was, something I had to eventually have that conversation with my friend, and then it kind of clicked for me. Oh yes, this is my motivating factor and reason. So
Mm,
really get clear like on your why. Why is money important to you? Why do you want to build wealth? What is it going to reward you with in the end?
mm.
In the present moment and also for those like long-term goals of like that person that you want to be.
Mm.
Always start there.
Love that. I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah. And it really connects with business owners. Like, why do you do your business? Connecting with your why
Right.
there. So it's just a different layer of connecting to your why, which is always
Hmm.
motivating and empowering and inspirational. So love that.
Yeah.
My next question would be a lot of the work that I can briefly touch on in my coaching business. Obviously, you can do this way deeper and more effectively than myself, but I've definitely had clients where we talk about how we can begin to work on our fears around money, our money blocks, how to feel safe around money, how to feel, especially as a woman, but I guess I don't even really want to put all of these labels like as a whatever, but it is the reality that some I think women feel a little bit more of that money block or that lack of, I don't, like you said, maybe shame, judgment that we're not allowed to make all this money, or who am I to have the ability to go have a margarita on a beach while my money is
Right.
doubling, or making that extra $500. So I'm sure that you work with this a lot with clients. How does this really present in your life and your business, and how do we begin to work through that money block?
Yeah, yeah. There's so many different money blocks. I think it's important to realize, like, as women, because a lot of the work I do specifically with women, is
Cool.
that it's only been a few decades since women have really been able to step into full independence in the way that they're able to accumulate, right, and have access to wealth. Like, at one point, women weren't even allowed to vote, go to school, have their own jobs, like I feel like for most of civilization, or like since humans have been here, women have always had to sort of have access to wealth through a man. Like that was
Mm-hmm.
sort of the way that women found stability and security when it came to being resourceful. So for the first time in history, most recent history, like women are now able to do that for themselves. So that can feel a bit scary because, if you're used to having someone else sort of manage it for you, and now like you're fully responsible. Yeah, obviously there are going to be periods where you might feel inadequate, especially if you didn't come from, family where, somewhat like mine, where there wasn't like the full sort of story as to how wealth is truly built and in a way that feels good and actually provides the stability that you'd like. So yeah, I think definitely like giving yourself that grace, showing yourself compassion, as a woman
Yeah.
for finally getting to this stage. And then I would say like some of the one of the many blocks that I see is yeah, the safety piece that you mentioned. Um, and some of that doesn't have to be completely because of money itself. Like I find um a lot of the disconnect in which we have to ourselves sometimes can sort of come about through different forms of trauma that we've sort of experienced throughout our life. And it doesn't really have to, like I said, connect with money. So I know for myself, just growing up in a very sometimes volatile household and seeing my parents fight a lot of conflict, I definitely have like an anxious attachment style. And so sometimes my environment doesn't always feel that stable. And so sometimes I'm trying to overcompensate to create that
Um,
out of fear. Or sometimes things can just easily unsettle me, and then I kind of, can spiral, and I'm not sure what safety looks like, right? So that's been a lot of my work in university, as I was sort of working on my finances and, just becoming the version of the woman that I wanted to be, was figuring out like what does safety look like. And so for me, it's taken leaning on a few tools and resources to get me there. But I would say like one exercise you could even do, because to understand what safety is, you have to understand what it looks like and what it feels like in our body. And for someone that's dealt with a lot of trauma, that was one of the hardest things to do, because I'm like, what does safety feel like?
yeah.
So, sitting with myself and recognizing like how does it show up in my body? Like when I feel at peace, when I feel secure, when I feel love, like how does that show up? And then that helps me when I'm going through certain financial situations or whether I'm going through challenges in relationships. When I notice that my body doesn't feel like that, when I'm not feeling safe, then I'm able to, one, at least I know, okay, I'm self-aware that I don't feel safe in this moment. And then eventually I'm able to work through and process those emotions and get myself back to a place of safety. And why safety is so important, especially when we're dealing with money, is because when we're making decisions around our finances, if you're not making decisions from a space where, you're calm, you're grounded, you're centered, you're probably not going to make the best decisions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is one of the biggest pieces of work that I do with all of my clients. We always start with like the mindset work or the mindset piece. Because yeah, like if you're making a decision, a financial decision or any kind of decision from a place where you're stressed, you're frustrated, you're feeling anxious, you're probably going to do something that you might regret.
Yeah.
And if you were like, even to just look back in hindsight of like some of the financial decisions you've made that didn't pan out the way that you wanted it to, if you were to look like a few seconds before, a few minutes, or just to acknowledge like what kind of environment you were in, where your mind space was at, you probably would agree that you weren't in the best state or
Mm.
mindset. Yeah.
It's so interesting learning what it feels like. I love that you take a more somatic approach. It's interesting to learn what making a decision out of fear feels like, and then what making a decision out of certainty or, having that intuition where you feel that it's a yes for you. And I know that human design, so we're kind of talking about I talk a lot about your authority to my clients and
Right.
on the podcast. And this is one way that those that are listening, when you know your authority, or go check your human design chart and find out what your authority is. The top three would be emotional, sacral, or splenic, but you could also be, there's like four other authorities that you could be. So learning that, and we can almost use human design here as this guidepost of learning what a yes feels like in your body and what a no feels like in your body, with the added piece that you're bringing up of fear. And are we making this, especially, I'm imagining my emotional authorities might have the most to navigate here, because emotional authorities have that emotional wave. We all have an emotional wave, but
Mhm.
emotional authorities have a little bit more of that consistent access to the emotional wave, and
Yes.
and that is why some we have these fear-driven tactics of like, you have to have this amount in your bank account because look at this person that didn't have any
Mhm.
savings, and then they hurt their leg, and and now they're homeless, and you're like, oh fuck, like
Right.
I
I
need
don't
to
want to be
sell
that.
all my shit and put it all in savings, like whatever it is. We
Yeah.
have fear-based driven tactics, and to have the tools and to work with someone like you, or to have even just the knowledge from this podcast of, wait, let me slow down. Let me take a beat and really check in with, am I making this decision out of fear, or am I making this
Right.
decision because it is you're a sacral authority and so am I. So I'm going to use the
Yeah.
language of, it is my sacral yes. And that is my like gut
Mhm.
response of, okay, this is a good decision for me in this moment. And it doesn't mean
Exactly.
we don't make
Yeah.
mistakes and we don't have things that we're like, man, maybe that wasn't the smartest thing. But at the time, I felt that it was
Yes.
the right decision for me and it led me to here. That's really the
Right.
goal, is
I
making.
love that. I don't know if this is a thing in human design, but I always like the idea because I'm someone I'm on the side of being like proactive
Yeah.
versus reactive and kind of having like fallback plans. So when I think of like my strategy type, I'm like, okay, yes, my gut, but also like I feel like I still kind of like to wade things through because
Mm,
sometimes like your gut reaction can still change, right? And like there's like one trick or hack that I always sort of teach people when it comes to especially people who fall on more like the anxious side
yeah.
of attachment styles. So like, this would be someone who maybe like overspends, right? When it comes to their finances. They're feeling stressed. Okay, like I'm gonna go shopping. And One way that anxious people kind of get tied up when it comes to their finances, especially when it comes to like spending and shopping, is like a sale, right? Like you see sale, and you're like, oh my gosh, I feel like I have to get it now because if I don't, like that fear base of like never seeing this opportunity again, right?
Mm.
And I always say like there will always be another sale. Like this is like literally a marketing tactic. Like we run businesses, we kind of understand the psychology of it. Like
Wow.
to create that urgency that there's never going to be another sale so that you spend now. Because people want, businesses want their money now. But it's an illusion. There will always be another opportunity,
Mm.
right? There will always be another sale. But I I always sort of suggest to people to like wait through, like give yourself 24 hours to really come back and see if you still want that item or experience or thing, you know? And so I love human design, but I also wonder like I mean that suggestion or that tip is probably in accordance to someone who's like an emotional authority, I guess is what you would say, or someone that like makes decisions like with like the moon or like has to kind of go through a cycle. But I still love bringing some of those authority kind of strategy types in because I
Mhm.
feel like it just creates an additional buffer to really make sure like this is an aligned decision.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and it definitely will maybe align and hit harder with the emotional authorities or reflectors, because if you're a reflector, your authority is to wait a lunar cycle, which is like a whole moon cycle. With reason, yeah, my sister's actually a reflector, and I have a lot to say about that. But we do a lot of work of like it doesn't always have to be that whole month to make every decision, obviously. But I love
Right.
your invitation of taking a beat and just give it a second. And if it's still a yes, then it's still a yes. You know what I mean?
Yes,
So like
exactly.
coming back as your sacral authority or a splenic authority, it should still be a yes tomorrow if it's this
Right.
larger decision. The spleen and the sacral authorities really talk in the moment, so it's this bodily response in the moment. This is a yes for me. And with
Mhm.
different topics, like if we're talking about what to eat, maybe yesterday a yes for me was pasta, and maybe today it's a no for pasta. And that's going to change from day to day. But if we're talking about investing or saving a certain amount, that should be a yes tomorrow as well. And
Exactly.
we can also get in the conversation of your if you're a specific manifester or a non-specific manifester. Have you learned that in human design?
Ooh, I believe I'm a non-specific.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a
It's like I'm not supposed to
specific.
be big on the detail, like the
No,
feeling,
that's
right?
okay. Yeah. It's not like the word manifesting is obviously a buzzword, so maybe that's why they used it, but
Right.
it's how you best call in new things into your life. So we could also talk about like with non-specific, it's focusing more on how do I want to feel? Like you gave the example of a beach. Like I want to be able to be on a beach and have this money adding up in my investment account, and that's how you want to feel. You want to feel how you feel on a beach. You want to feel relaxed. You want to,
Right.
maybe that's where your stability and your safety comes in, bringing in the attachment style conversation that you brought
Right.
up. And then me, I'm a specific manifester. So it's also seeing like how you want to feel, but then reverse engineering or going a little bit further and like how much money do you want to invest, or how much money helps you feel safe. What's the numerical value of safety in your savings
Right.
account? And that's whatever, $10,000. That's how I feel safe and secure. And then we
Yeah.
go off of that like $10,000 amount. So there's a lot of
Mhm.
places in human design actually that this can help create
Right.
this roadmap almost of like, where do I start? How do I get there? How do I create safety? Safety is a really huge buzzword right now, and I love that it can be defined in different ways. Like, what does that show up? And thank you for explaining how it shows up for you, because we kind of use that generally, like anxiety too. Like, it's a very generic, general term, but it's going to be very
Yeah.
different for everyone.
for everyone. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and like even just the idea of building wealth and the pathways to building wealth will look different for everyone, right? You don't have to build it out all the same way. Some people build wealth through real estate investments or through the stock market or through just consistent, persistent savings, or passive income streams. Like it can look completely different. And that is one of the things that I admire so much about, getting to work with women and just realizing their different goals, their passions, their desires, and ensuring that however you want to live life on your terms, like it is possible. You can do it your way. And I think that's why it's very important. I love that we're talking, or we've talked about so far, like getting clear on your why and what safety feels like when it comes to money. Because I feel like, especially in this day and age, so much of us are conditioned to chase wealth that looks like somebody else's. And
Mm,
we're really not building wealth that's in accordance to our energetic blueprint. Like we're looking at the highlight reels, we're, seeing people, taking the next trip or buying these like lavish houses. And sometimes we compare ourselves to people at different stages of their journey, but you might like not actually want to live that specific life. We're just conditioned to think that this is what it's supposed to look like, right? Like that whole American dream, society's laid out for you. You're supposed to go to school, get the job, or like get the degree first so that you can get that job and then, find that secure, stable job so that you can like buy a home, settle down, have a family, and then retire at 65. And it's like everyone is supposed to follow that.
yeah.
There's actually this one finance expert that I love to watch. His name is Ramit Sethi. And he's written a book like How to Get Rich. He has a Netflix show and stuff. Really good. I love the way that he speaks about money and his strategy around money. Because he's become controversial. I think this is the way that he was able to become popular because he actually teaches people not to buy a house. He thinks it's like the worst financial investment you could ever do, which is
What?
like, yeah, which like my dad being a real estate investor, like my brother's also just become a real estate investor. So I'm surrounded by people who believe in like the pathway towards building wealth is through real estate. And
Yeah.
he's like, no, like you can actually end up spending more money purchasing a home because of, the maintenance. People don't talk about the maintenance over
Mm,
time. Big repairs like the roof and even just things breaking down, depending even what type of house you get.
yeah.
If it's an older home, a lot of maintenance and insurance. You're paying a lot more in insurance and interest on the home. Like, the home might be like $500,000, but by the time you pay it off in 30 years, you probably paid like $1 million for the home,
Yeah.
right? So did you really make back your money, and he's like, everyone just like some people just have a different lifestyle. So what if you're someone that loves to travel? So like myself, like I'm very much a digital nomad. Like
Mm,
I love to be in different spaces and I don't want to be in one place for too long. And so does it really make sense to have a permanent home with a mortgage? And then it's like when I want to get up and leave, I feel limited because I have to pay like this $2,000 a month mortgage
yeah.
that doesn't free up money for me to like maybe stay at an Airbnb in like Lisbon, Portugal right now, right? So there's still ways around it. It doesn't mean like I don't truly believe that like buying a home is like the worst investment, but yeah, and like it just really makes you think like why were we all taught that like buying a home was like the ultimate goal when really like maybe it's not, especially when as an investor I've recognized that like real estate isn't the only pathway. You can invest in stocks and see similar returns. You can make $1 million from investing in the stock market consistently over time, 30, 40 years, the same way that you would if you just bought a house and sat in it. So
Mm,
it's just, you know, um, I think like when we become more educated and understand like how these systems work and getting clear on like who you are, what's important to you, and really building wealth in alignment with your values, um, you will create wealth that feels good, that
mm,
continues to bring that feeling of and sense of safety. Because there's so many people who are building wealth that like, yeah, have the six-figure business or making millions of dollars, but they're still unfulfilled. They're still unhappy because they're not building wealth in a way that's true to them.
yeah.
They're trying to do in a way to buy approval, status. So,
Right. You bring
yeah.
up such a good point. It's navigating and exploring what does success look like to me? What is success to me?
Yeah.
That came up when I was a kid too, because It came up in a conversation with my
As a
dad.
kid?
Yeah,
Oh
as
my
a
God.
kid, I was in like middle school or high school,
Yeah.
and it was my dad's girlfriend at the time, and she said something about like, "Oh, you won't be successful," or like, "You're not successful
Oh my
because X,
God.
Y, and Z." And I remember I wrote this whole letter to my dad because I'm like,
Oh,
that's not success to me. Having a ton of
no.
money is actually not what success means to me. And to me, to have lived a successful life, who was it that wrote that poem? Ralph Waldo Emerson or something?
Not sure.
Man, I'm gonna have to post it under this
Right.
in the
Please
podcast
do.
description. But what does
Yeah,
success mean to you? Because it might not be owning a house. I love that you brought up that example
exactly.
because that's one of our classic examples of
Yeah,
this is what stability represent, or this is representative of stability and safety and security and financial success. But there's so many different reasons that that might not be someone's version of success. And I also
exactly.
love the point that I want to add in to the last part of what you were saying is when we are are clear on our why and what success looks like for us, how we want to be making money, I promise you, from again that like human design alignment perspective, when we are
Mm.
living in alignment with our values, with our why, with our energy and our blueprint, the money that we make is
Oh
more
my God.
easeful. And maybe
Yes.
you feel like you can't make $1 million because that's not actually what is successful
You're
to
so
you at your core.
exactly.
It's we have to like
Yeah.
pull apart these conditionings. Like maybe it's your parents, maybe it's society, maybe it's just this thing that you have playing in your mind of like buying a house, right? Which would be societal, I think, pressure.
For
um
sure.
and you feel like this is where I need to get to this point where I can buy a house. Like what if you don't actually want to buy a house,
No,
and then you
exactly. Yeah,
decide that this is the avenue that I want to go down? Watch how fast that happens for you because you're finally
exactly.
living in alignment. You're not swimming against the current anymore. You're rotating to actually flow with the current, and it will
Yes.
fall into
Flow. Flow is a big word. I love that you use that word. Yeah, especially when it comes
flow.
to
Yeah.
money. The flow. And I first want to understand it because I'm a Capricorn sun, and it's something that like I still have challenges with is like I really love to be in control of outcomes. And
Love.
it's like I really want things to go a specific way. And if it's not going a specific way, then I get really frustrated and having to recognize, specifically my relationship with money that yeah, sometimes when you force things too much, like that is really when you start to get out of this place of safety because you're not trusting the universe to unfold things in a way where it's supposed to, right? Whether it's like your career, yeah, career, the type of work that you choose to do, how you're choosing to do it, especially in a business, right? Like there's so many different ways, even within a business, to figure out ways to make money, to show up for people, how you're going to serve.
Mm,
Like for example, when I first started my business, I made a lot of money in my first year, coaching, and creating a lot of impact, but I got burnt out and I literally had to take like 2 years off after that. This is actually like last year and like mostly this year, I would say is my um experience actually full-time coaching again. Because the first year
mm,
that I coached, the way that I was marketing myself wasn't in a very authentic way. Like I was marketing through Instagram and social media, and that's something that like I already knew prior to starting my business. I wasn't a social media girl. Like I didn't, that wasn't the way that I like related to other people and was able to connect. I'm someone that's really like, I love to like get on the phone with you and chat one-on-one and like just meet up with people and just commune. And like, that's how, like I love to build community.
mm.
But the first thing that I did was I got an Instagram coach, knowing that I don't like Instagram, but I just felt like, well, this is how everyone else is making money in their business. Like you have to be on Instagram, you have to be on the socials. And so after the first year in my business, I energetically burnt out. I didn't even know that. burning out energetically was a thing. Like whenever I thought of burnout, I always felt like it was like, oh, for like the busy moms that are like physically like moving around and doing all the, you know, doing XYZ, all these things. But it was like energetically by me not doing things that felt good to me, I grew to resent my business and ended up actually losing more money in the long run because then I had to take a break from my business for like 2 years,
Right.
and then find other ways to make money that wasn't related to like my coaching, which was actually what I really want to do. And that's like why I know that I'm here to serve and to help create that transformation for people to come back home to themselves through navigating their finances.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show you like how much abandoning yourself just for the sake of making money is not worth it in the long
Yeah.
run, right?
Well, one of my favorite quotes is burnout actually doesn't occur from doing too much. It's by doing too much that doesn't light you up and that is out of
Yes.
alignment with you. And that's such a great example and such a good reminder of like you end up having to take such a long break when we are living in this I have to force, I have to force, I have to force. We are going to get burnt out. And then you do end up having to take whatever time period of break that is
Yeah,
versus, yeah, let me check in with myself. Like, do I actually really love Instagram? Do I
exactly.
want to use Instagram to market my business?
Exactly.
Or do I want to do it how, quote, everyone tells me to do it? And that absolutely goes with making money as well. And how we
Yeah.
learn to make money. So one of the things that you and I also talked about that I want to maybe end on is the art of reciprocity. That's one of the things that you and I talked about. So can you define that? What does that mean to you and how does that show up?
Yeah. So, I like to see money as somewhat of an energy, and I say that because you don't really require money or currency in the way that we see today as a way to exchange goods or services or time or energy from somebody. Really what money allows us to do is to exchange, is to create this exchange, which I see as part of this law of reciprocity, right? The give and take, right?
Mm,
Whenever you spend money somewhere, you're purchasing, maybe it's a crystal at a spiritual shop, right? Like you are giving money to that person, that's a gift. And in return, you are receiving this crystal, right? That's of value to you. And vice versa, that person's gifting you, and then they are receiving the money that you were giving them, and that is your gift to them. So everything is a give and take, everything, like every decision that you make, every interaction that you have with someone is a give and take. And so that's what the art of reciprocity at least looks like to me, or how I
yeah.
define it. Yeah, the give and
And it's
take.
kind of taking a little bit of pressure off of money when we're just kind of seeing it as this gift or this energy that we're exchanging with others. And
Yeah.
yeah, to me, I don't know, when I learned that, it did in some way just take that pressure off of,
Mm,
I don't know, I have to make all this money. It's like because we can give in so many different ways too, and we can receive in so many different ways, and it doesn't always have to be money related. I don't know.
yeah. I've heard of this really good exercise. Someone brought to my attention the other day, and it was like going through your bill statements or just like like your card statements and seeing like what you're spending money on. And most people like, when a bill comes, it's like, I hate that I have to pay this bill. And like it feels like it's taking from you. But what if you were able to like reframe that perspective and see like what it's actually gifting back to you, right? So it's like, yeah, I have to pay $60 for this phone bill. But what does the phone reward me with? What do I get out of it? Right? What's the value in having this phone? I get to connect with people. I get to run my business in a way that feels aligned. This is how I make money, right? Like it will come back to me,
Yeah.
right? Because through this phone, this is how I create everyday interactions with people that, can eventually, purchase from my business, etc. So yeah, like I think it's just the way that you reframe it and look at it. And the other reason why I like talking about the art of reciprocity, especially when we're having conversations about building wealth outside of capitalistic frameworks, is because you don't necessarily really need money to exchange things with people. if we go back to like the dawn of like human civilization, before even like cash or gold or whatever, was used as like this third party system to exchange, people just barter. Like bartering is like the oldest financial system ever known, right? Where it was like, I have something of value, you have something of value, let's just trade.
Yeah.
And there's no real like financial backing to it. It was just like, yeah, I really want what you want. I really want what you have. And like, let's just, maybe what I have is worth $500 and whatever you have is worth five, but it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, like, we both just find it equally valuable.
Yeah.
Right. But it's just like, obviously, humans, we create this concept and this idea called money, which it wasn't evil in I think its conception. It was really just to make things easier because bartering only works at very small scales, like very small local
Yeah.
levels. So if you have like 20 people like in a tribe, it's very easy to barter. But what happens when you have 7 billion people to manage in the world?
Yeah.
Bartering isn't as simple, right? So I understand why we start to create these like economic systems that are very complex because like it's just a form or way of organizing you
Yeah.
know, people, groups, large groups. And so if you have this third kind of item that everybody values, let's say it's going to be gold, then like it creates a lot of stress and complexities and issues because okay, everyone values gold. So like everyone works for gold and is able to buy whatever they want with the gold that they have.
Mm.
If you think about it from that angle, like money isn't really evil in its
Yeah.
in itself, it's just a tool, right? And you can replace that tool with other things as well, as long as someone else finds value in that other tool that you have to offer. So something that I love to do personally, like actually something I'm thinking of doing in my coaching is offering people other ways to like engage in like my offerings and my services and trade with me outside of like money. So maybe it's like you can support me by like working 10 hours for me and creating reels so that I can like further expand, like my business's visibility. Or something that I like to do with other coaches is like we swap. So it's like, okay, Hannah, like I'll do like let's do like a 1 hour, financial strategy call, and in return, maybe you give me like a human design reading. And
Yeah.
so I love this concept of like, yeah, we don't always need that like money to be in the middle of every single exchange that we have.
Yeah.
And a way for us to feel resourceful, I think it takes getting creative and recognizing like that is the system that everyone's decided to abide by, but you don't have to. Like I know,
Mm.
like I don't want to make it seem as easy as, oh, like just stop paying your taxes and just don't participate. It's not that easy, but if you can small, just find with like small ways, right? Within your everyday interactions with the people in your circle to like
Yeah.
kind of avoid having to use like money and looking at creative other ways to exchange. And I
Yeah.
think it makes life a little bit more easier. And you'll come to realize that actually like building true wealth, building true wealth isn't as complicated as we need it, like make it out to be.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. I'm obsessed with this idea of learning to be resourceful for all of the reasons that you said. And we learn so much more. Like, I have so much to learn from you that I don't know,
Mm,
and you have so much to learn from me, just even from
right.
finances and human design, right?
Yeah.
And that's such a simple example. But not only are we, right, not exchanging like a financial exchange, we're exchanging information, but then you and I walk away knowing so much more. And if you do that,
Mm,
again, not for everything, but if you do that
yeah.
within your circle, think about how much you now know. And that truly is being more resourceful and just walking around as a more fully developed human. And maybe
Mm.
it's our manifesting generator energy type coming out,
Maybe.
but why not learn something new? Especially if it's
Yeah.
obviously it
Yeah.
has to be something that you are interested in. And that might not
Yeah.
be like the most life-changing thing in the world, but it doesn't have to be. Like I would love to learn. I love to learn. I just love to. I also have a one line in my profile, which is like the
Right.
investigator and the learner. So that's definitely me. But
Awesome.
learning these new things, it does make you a more fully developed, like whole human,
Well-rounded.
in my opinion.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
I love, love, love that idea. And thank you for
Love
giving that
it.
invitation once again to everyone listening, because we really can get stuck in like that money, I don't know, vortex. Whether you
Vortex,
think
yeah.
it's something bad, good, or indifferent, it doesn't even matter. We can all get stuck in it. So thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate you.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
I found the poem, so I want to read this poem real quick, and then I have a final question for you. But the poem is by Ralph Waldo Emerson, and it's called "What is Success?" This is going back to our success. We're looping back for a minute. To laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate the beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a little bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition, to know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded. And I read that when I was a
Oh,
kid, and I'm like,
oh my
that's it,
goodness.
right? Like, that's what success is to me. It has nothing to do with finances. Yes, I can be
Right.
financially successful, but to have made one person's life a little bit better, that like
Oh my God.
1% better, like you said, that's success.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes. Wow, you were ahead of your times.
I don't know. I feel blessed. I have a lot of you know how I read that poem? My aunt, I'm like just calling out all my family members today. My
Right.
aunt, I was a kid because I was like coloring, and she had printed this poem on a piece of paper,
Um,
and she's like, "Hannah, will you color this for me because I'm gonna hang it in my bathroom?" And girl, it sat in her bathroom for like years, and I colored a
years. I
little
love it.
rainbow. Yeah.
Right.
It
Oh,
actually might still be in her bathroom, to
oh
be
my
honest
goodness.
with you.
Stop.
I'm gonna have to ask her about it when I get off
Ask
the
if it's still
podcast.
there. That's amazing.
That's
Yeah.
yeah. So
So
that was like,
powerful. Just a small moment. Yeah.
developing.
Just,
Definitely.
mhm.
Definitely.
Thanks for
So where
sharing.
can people hang out with you? I don't even remember if you're on Instagram. I know we said that you don't love the marketing in Instagram, but where can people
Yeah.
continue to learn from you? Where can people connect with you?
Yeah, definitely head straight to my website. That's like my baby, my home, morganblackman.com. It's just my name. And then my YouTube, that's mainly where like I show up weekly and like educate, inspire. That's also my name, Morgan Blackman. I do have a Instagram account, but like don't go there for like financial advice.
Ah, okay.
Personal, like creative playground. Sometimes I just like share reels on my stories and stuff like that. So it's kind of inactive. You can follow me there if you want to message me. Some people message me through there, but yeah, I would say YouTube, my website, and then I have a Substack. So every Monday I drop like a weekly newsletter, and that is at the Wealth Letters. So THEWELLTH letters. You can also find it on my website. Like if you go down to the footer, you can subscribe through there.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I'll put it in the description notes too, so you can
Description,
click on
yes.
that once you stop moving around after you're listening to this podcast. I know a lot of people listen while they're driving
Right.
and like working out, so you can click on
Right.
it after. Final question for you, going back kind of to that like feeling into what success feels like. The question is, what does living in alignment feel like in your body specifically? What have you learned this feeling, these sensations really show up as, oh, this is me feeling aligned in my body.
Yeah. Definitely I feel like a warm, tingly sensation and like sort of what you mentioned earlier, that like yes, like lit up. Like if something like lights me up, like I don't know how to explain it. It's like your body just like all
Perks up. Yeah.
kind of perks up. Yeah, it's like, oh, yeah. And yeah, and I check in with my body. There's no fear there. There's no doubt. Like it's just like a clear, like, yes, this feels good. That's how
Mm,
I know this is in alignment for
I
sure.
love that. Thank you for sharing. Definitely sacral authority stuff right there. We love that. Like perking up, lighting up. I love that. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This was such a beautiful conversation. Thank you for sharing your expertise in wealth and developing wealth and all of the challenging questions and topics that we talked about today. I appreciate your time and thank you for coming on, Morgan.
Thanks for having me.